checking in from the top of Rattlesnake Mountain with my boy Reno Grinder to start off this vlog. A windy day here in Reno, taking my dog Leo, his dogs Odin and Kiki to the top of this mountain before jumping in some free fun cashgame action in Peppermill later on today. Alright, it is a Thursday, and I'm heading into the Peppermill, still deep in the hole for the month of May. As you can see right here, a lot of work to do to dig out of a $4,000 downswing to start the month. It's a 3-5 game starting here at 1 o'clock, and I'm going to try to make some of that happen. I take a hockey puck out of my pocket, that's what we call the oversized $1,000 chips here in Reno, and buy in. Fold every hand for the first half hour until I ultimately end up raising in the low jack with 6-9 of clubs to $15. The cutoff calls as well as the small blind and the big blind. So with 60 in the pot, we see a flop of ace, ace, 3 with 2 clubs. It gets checked to me, but in a 4-way pot, someone is very likely to have an ace, so I decide not to semi-bluff. I check, the cutoff checks, and we see a turn, which comes the 10 of clubs, giving me a flush. The small blind leads for 20. I double check my cards to make it look like I'm seeing if I have a club. I raise to 60. He thinks about it for 5 seconds and makes the call. With 180 in the pot, the river comes an offsuit 8, and he checks. I bet 110. He asks if his kicker is any good, and finally folds. He wants me to show, but I decide against it. Next hand, it folds around to the small blind and me in the big blind. He calls the 5, and I make it 15 with ace-jack off suit. He makes the call, and the flop comes jack 6-7 with 2 spades. He checks, and I bet 20. He thinks about it and makes the call. The turn comes the 9 of spades, and he leads for 55. Folding is not an option because I think he's raising a lot of his flush draws on the flop. Raising seems to be a bit thin, so that leaves one option. I make the call, and with 180 in the pot, we go to the river, which comes an offsuit 5. He bets 75. I make the call. He says he just has a 9. I show my hand, and he mucks, and we pick up another one. The next hand, there's a $10 straddle on the button, and I'm under the gun with ace-king. I make it 35, and the cutoff re-raises me to 100. The straddle and both blinds fold, and I make the call. With $215 in the pot, the flop comes king 3-4 rainbow. I check. The cutoff bets $225. I found myself thinking this would be a good bet if he had aces, because you're never going to be getting ace-king to fold. You might as well get max value out of it, because that's the hand they're going to be up against a lot of the time. Now, I'm never folding because he's a pretty aggressive player, and I'm not raising because he's rarely going to call me with worse, so I make the call. Turn comes a 6 of spades, bringing in backdoor spades. I check, and he thinks about it and finally checks it back. The river comes the 9 of diamonds. I bet 200, thinking that pocket queens could never fold to it. He does indeed snap call, and I'm good. After I lost about $150 to a pro with ace-king in the hand shortly after that, the game gets short, and it folds to me in the cutoff, and I pick up the extraordinarily premium hand of 8-4 of diamonds, and I make it 20. The button and the blinds fold. The button calls, and the blind folds. The flop comes out above average, 8-4-10 with 2 hearts. I bet 25, and he makes the call. The turn is a 3. I'm definitely not going to be slowing down here. I bet 75, and again, he calls. The river comes a 4, giving me a full house. I consider checking because he's an aggressive opponent and will occasionally overbet his bluffs. I consider checking because he's an aggressive opponent and could definitely be capable of overbetting in a bluff, but I figured that his range consists mostly of top pair on a flop where I have bottom 2, so I bet 150. He thinks about it and calls fairly quickly, and obviously I'm good. He went on to show a 10. The game was still 4-handed, and the button straddles to 15. I'm first to act pre-flop, and I raise to 45 with ace-king of clubs. The straddle calls, but then the big blind makes it 150. This is my buddy RENO Grinder, who you saw earlier in the vlog. I know he's going to have a big hand here, but I figure folding ace-king suited is too nitty four-handed, so I make the call. The straddle folds, and with 350 in the pot, the flop comes out ace-queen-6 with 2 spades. He checks, which means that he either has pocket queens and he wants to slow play him, or he has pocket kings or pocket jacks and hates the flop, so I check it back. The turn comes a 7, and he checks again. I figure it's time I make a feeler bet to find out what's going on. I toss in $50, and my test results come back positive as he raises me to 205. I ask him exactly how he can get so lucky with a set of queens when I hit ace-king, and he says he isn't sure how. How do you just flop a set of queens on me like that when I have this thing? How do you do it?
Ben might be right. Ben might be right.
How do you know?
He knows.
He shows the queens and takes it down. So for the second straight vlog, I correctly put someone on pocket queens with the audio to prove it, but this time, I don't win. I lost a few small pots, and then the game's most aggressive and unpredictable player raises to 80 over several limps. I cold call that raise with pocket 7s, and the big blind and all the limpers make the call as well. The flop comes out 7-8-3 with 2 hearts. I check, and it gets painstakingly checked around. The turn comes the 4 of hearts, which I didn't like, but I don't want to risk getting it checked through again, so I bet 150. It folds to the cutoff, who's the initial raiser in this hand, and he folds an 8 face up. Surprised that he wouldn't bet the flop after making it 80 pre-flop and flopping top pair, but like I said, he's unpredictable and aggressive. After that, I lost $200 on 2 hands of flopping a pair of aces but being outkicked, and then when the game is full again, but 3 people are walking, I raise to 20 with 7-8 of diamonds, and I get a call from the button and the small blind. The flop comes out 5-6-10, rainbow. The small blind checks, and I bet 50 as a semi-bluff, and the button makes the call. The small blind folds, and with 160 in the pot, the turn comes a dream card for me, the 4 of diamonds. I bet 80, and the button makes the call. With 320 in the pot, the river is not a good card. It comes a 7. Despite the fact this could kill my action, I bet 125. He thinks about it for a minute and calls, so I take down a pot of $670. So after exactly 8 hours of play, I book a $342 win. Definitely feels like it should have been more due to the amount of big hands I made on the day, but a win is a win, and I won't complain. All right, so 2 voiceover vlogs and 2 wins. Definitely the overwhelming consensus on the YouTube comments was that the voiceover format was better. I think a lot of you just like the fact that I can get a lot more hands in there, and I'm happy with it. I mean, I think that I wouldn't say this vlog is the best vlog out there in terms of poker vlogs. I think it's top 5, but I wouldn't say it's the best. But I do think that the video that I've been able to get of hands has been number 1. And I think with this format, it just emphasizes that even more, and it's going to allow me to get even better hand video. And when I sit in the 8 seat or the 2 seat, it really is better for capturing. So I'm going to try and do that on the sessions that I do vlog. So we book a win there, and I'll be back at it tomorrow, considering tomorrow is Friday. As always, thanks for subscribing. If you haven't already, please do so. It really helps out the channel a ton. And follow me on Instagram at Ben Deach, and I will see you next time.